the screen?
Yep. Everybody's coming in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I'll keep my eye on that to keep letting people in as they join.
Perfect. Thank you. And we can mute everyone as well.
Yep. I think everybody's set to mute as they come in.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give everyone a minute or so to get on before we start our presentation. On the screen, everyone will see 3 ways to join Poll Everywhere. This is a platform that we'll be using today to help us ask and answer some questions. So we'll have our Zoom session going. As you can see the presentation on the screen right now. And then there's these 3 different ways, whether you want to join via an app, the website, or a text message. So the simplest way if you're joining from a desktop computer is probably to open up a browser to have these 2 screens side by side. And we have the link available in the chat as well to access that website. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's 9:03, and I know we only have a few minutes, an hour and 15 minutes today, so we have a lot to get through, and we're really looking forward to having a conversation with everybody today. So let's go to the next slide, please, Kristen. Right, so thank you for joining everyone. This is the Resilient New Jersey Atlantic County Coastal Region Virtual Open House. We're really excited to have everybody today. And as you all know, this is the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Resilient New Jersey project or planning process, which has launched a regional resilience and adaptation action planning program so that we can prepare for the impacts of climate change, specifically related to flood risk, including sea level rise, coastal storms, and stormwater flooding. So we're here today to discuss this plan, give an overview of what it entails, and share with you how we're developing a vision and goals for the project. This is really the guiding light of where we'll be going in the next several months through next year. So we're inviting you today to share your thoughts with us on defining this vision and goals and helping us prepare for and respond and adapt to a changing climate. We're excited to have DEP's Chief Resilience Officer and Assistant Commissioner Dave Rosenblatt with us today, as well as members of our steering committee and our project team. Y también me gustaría presentar Nieves Pimiento y Flor Mason de nuestro equipo que van a ayudar con cualquier pregunta o comentario en español. So if anybody has any questions or comments in Spanish, we also have translators on the line to help us with that today. As you see on the screen, we have a pretty brief agenda. We'll start with some welcome and housekeeping and just go through a couple of those items briefly. We'll review the 2 different meeting objectives we have for today, provide an overview of the Resilient New Jersey program. We'll ask for your input on what your vision for the future looks like and what goals the Regional Resilience and Adaptation Action Plan should have to help us guide this whole planning process. And then we'll close out by providing a few key ways that we hope that you'll stay involved with us. All right, so let's just jump right in. So in January 2016, the state of New Jersey was awarded $15 million as a part of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development National Disaster Resilience Competition. This competition made $1 billion available to communities struck by natural disasters in recent years. So the competition is designed to promote risk assessment, planning, implementation of innovative resilience projects to better prepare communities for future storms and other extreme events. The Resilient New Jersey program is led by the Bureau of Climate Resilience Planning, within DEP's Climate and Flood Resilience Program. So we'll hear from Dave Rosenblatt in just a few minutes to talk a little bit more about the overarching program. Next slide, please. So DEP has selected consultant teams for each of the 4 regions where this planning process is happening simultaneously across the state. So on the screen, you'll see who comprises our team. It's a mix of planners, designers, engineers, landscape architects, ecologists, public involvement specialists, academic institution. We're lucky to have Rutgers University with us. And we launched this last fall, the project. So we've been busy researching the region's planning context, working with our regional coordinator to establish a steering committee, and holding numerous listening sessions with members of the community to help us get off the ground and to get us to this point where we are today. All right, next slide, please. So our steering committee, and it looks like we actually just have a few of our steering committee members on the phone. Thank you for joining us and welcome. I'd also like to introduce Jim Rattel, our regional coordinator, who submitted this initial grant application and has organized the steering committee that represents 7 municipalities, Atlantic County, and our community-based organization, the American Red Cross. So we're really excited to have this team together, and very lucky to have their dedication and the passion from all the members on our steering committee who meet with us every month and help guide the planning process and the development of the action plan. Let's see, I think, Jim, on that note, is there anything that you wanted to say about the steering committee or kind of the origins of the project?
No, I think you're fine. Just that, all the coastal communities in Atlantic County, for the most part, are involved and supportive of this effort. And we're looking forward to getting more information out to the public.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jim. Okay. And thanks to the American Red Cross, we're excited to be able to offer a bonus for anybody who's able to stay with us to the end and participate in our exit survey. So thank you to Dr. Bowman, Ms. Lisa McGee, and the American Red Cross team for providing this special offer that not only can help with certain job or volunteering requirements, but is also helpful for spreading knowledge and training that helps make people and communities safer by being prepared for emergencies. So if you're interested, you can provide your contact information at the end to be entered into this, this raffle that will randomly select a few people for this free adult first aid course. It's first aid, CPR, and AED. So please hang on to the end. All right, let's get into a couple of housekeeping items. As I think everyone is probably very well versed at this point, being over a year now into a lot of primarily virtual engagement sessions and meetings, we're asking that everybody stays on mute to reduce the background noise, make use of the chat box and ask questions. We really want this to be an interactive dialogue with all of you. So please be sure to use that chat box, and you can also use the raise hand function if you'd like to verbally provide comments or ask questions that way. The survey questions that we'll be asking as part of this Poll Everywhere exercise will also be available afterward in English and Spanish, and we'll post that on our website. Okay, next slide, please. So again, we're hoping to gain your input in 2 different ways. We're hoping that this is pretty simple, and maybe some of you have already used this Poll Everywhere platform as well. But it's two different browsers essentially. So we have the Zoom meeting, and that's where you can see the chat box. You can answer questions there, provide links, share resources, raise your hand through Zoom. We also then have the Poll Everywhere platform. So that's where we're able to have this live real-time polling in a little bit of a different format than what's available on Zoom. And Kristen, I'll turn it to you to describe those different ways again of how people can engage with the Poll Everywhere platform.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Kristen Shaw with WSP, and I'm here to support the polling and the interactive elements of this meeting today. There are 3 ways to engage. You can use the app, which is free to download in your app store on your phone. As Alyssa mentioned, it is easy to just go ahead and drop the link right into the website, and you can participate that way. And you can also engage with your cell phone. So you text into the number 22333 The keyword for this meeting is Resilient NJ, and not all of the activities are going to be able to be facilitated through the text function. So if that happens, it will just send you a link. Feel free to open up that link in the browser on your cell phone, and you should be able to engage that way. And if anybody has questions about how to use any of these applications or you need help, please feel free to reach out in the chat. We'll be happy to support you and make sure that we can get your feedback. And if at any point you feel like this isn't for you and you would just like to provide some feedback, you're welcome to just put your input in the chat and we'll make sure that's recorded when we go through everything after the meeting. And with that, I think we're going to jump into our first poll.
Crystal, we just had a quick question about the raise hand function. Oh, somebody just answered it. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So I think I'm going to hand it back over to you, Alyssa.
Great, thank you. So on the screen, we have, just to get things started, I see that people are already starting to participate here. We are looking for just your name and affiliation to get started. This will just help us get a sense of who's on the line today, and also just trying to make a simple question to get the ball rolling, pull everywhere. Thank you, Jamie, for sharing that Poll Everywhere link again. So if you're having trouble getting on that link, you can click in the chat box. We'll open up a new browser for you. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next question just to keep things rolling. And I see we have a couple other people that have also responded in the chat box as well. Good morning, David. Good morning, Jim. Okay, this next question is for us to also understand where you live or work. So this is our project region as defined by the Resilient New Jersey planning process. So we have, as you know, the 7 municipalities as part of the physical region, and it's the region's outlined by that red dashed line. If you live outside the region, please just click outside of the map that's shown here. And if you'd be willing to share where you're calling in from in the chat box, we'd also love to learn where you're calling from.
Alyssa, you are muted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's great. Thank you also for using the chat box. See a lot of answers coming in through there. And I maybe was muted when I was talking about working with the communities around the region. Did anybody hear that part?
Nope, we didn't.
My apologies. So I was also saying, for planning purposes, we have this boundary that's defined for the Resilient New Jersey planning project, or planning process, I should say, but also actively engaging with members of communities around the region. We understand that climate impacts really don't know boundaries. So we've already had some listening sessions with Absecon and Linwood and others, and community advisory committees around the region. So really interested in working with, of course, members and constituents within our region, but also our neighbors nearby. All right, let's move on. Thank you for that. And please keep open your browser or continue to keep using your app or phone to text in the responses. We'll get back to some more Poll Everywhere questions when we get into our vision and goals section. So for our meeting objectives today, there's just two simple primary objectives. We can go to the next slide, please. The first is to discuss the Resilient New Jersey planning process. So how we can share what we're doing as part of our scope as the consultant team, and kind of the overarching view also from Dave when we just turn it over to him in a minute. And then the second is to hear from you. So we're asking for your help in defining a vision and the goals to help guide the Atlantic County Coastal Region Action Plan. So your participation today is really going to help us inform how we can best tackle current issues while also looking to the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dave to talk a little bit about the Resilient New Jersey program. Over to you, Dave.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Rosenblatt, the state's Chief Resilience Officer and also Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Environmental Protection. I'm live from Ventnor today, overlooking the beach. I just want to say that, tell you something that I tell my staff all the time, and they'll attest to that, that some of them are here today. Our primary objective as a group within DEP is to get information out to the public. We've started doing this through the release of the scientific report on climate change last summer. We just released the draft resilience strategy a month or so ago. And as of a couple of days ago, we released the sea level rise guidance document. All of this is online at our website. So we want to get information out to the public and to local officials. We also want to make sure that
you can tell me all about it.
Hello. Okay. So we also want to make sure that there's an understanding of not just the science behind what we're going to do, but also that you understand how the science is connected to the policy that the state, that the department will eventually develop. Understanding that the Resilience New Jersey process is not a regulatory process. It's a natural transition from state planning to local planning. We believe that right now, with our 2100 timeframe or planning horizon, we have good time to make local plans to respond to what is going to come. Now, we are focused down here in South Jersey, of course, on flooding, coastal flooding in particular. But climate change is so much more than that. Temperature increases in urban areas are going to be an extremely important issue that we have to deal with. How temperature rise affects agriculture, how it affects forests, how it affects all the fauna that's in those areas is what we are going to have to discover and respond to. Now, I want to say that choosing a 2100 planning horizon puts us not at a disadvantage, but it makes things difficult for us as we try to relate to the public or relay information to the public, because it's a big planning horizon, 2100, that's 80 years out. And it's something that we really haven't tackled before, but we believe it's necessary because the things that we do today are going to be around most likely in 2100. Yes, I'm thinking about specific buildings, how we build, where we build, but the planning initiatives that we take on at this time will still have an impact into the future, and yes, 80 years into the future. Now, we frequently hear that people don't want the state to do the local planning for them, and we agree. What we'd like to do through Resilient NJ is help you with the information we have, the science, the planning tools, and help you formulate your own plans. Now, we have expertise. There's lots of expertise at the local level. And I think we can be very effective in planning for adaptation to the changes that climate change is going to bring. I would also point out here in the beginning of this discussion that you may be aware that the Army Corps of Engineers is doing a really comprehensive, extensive job in preparing their Back Bay study, and all the I call remedial actions, all the projects that could be developed, could be built to protect the areas that we've already developed down here. And I would say everybody here should be participating in those sessions when they become available. It's important to understand what can be done, and then we have to decide what should be done. Also, what can be afforded. The core projects invariably are civil works of some type, whether they're flood walls or floodgates or even elevating homes. They're expensive, and we don't know what the budgets are going to look like into the future in order to accomplish these civil works projects. At the federal level, it's going to be difficult because so much of the country is going to need money for climate change adaptation, certainly at the state level. That's why planning now becomes so important. Again, it's important to know what can be done. It's even more important to know what we will be able to do, what we want to do in the future, and how we can preserve what we have by adapting and starting that adaptation now. So I just want to end with where I started. Information, and I would encourage the Resilient NJ program, as I always do, to make sure that we go beyond the usual stakeholders that participate in everything we do almost. We have to get the people, get the public involved in this and get them knowledgeable. The newspapers, whether it's the Washington Post, New York Times, the Atlantic City Press, are always, at least once a week, have some kind of climate change article in them that people should be, can be reading. We have to pound those messages home, make sure that people, when they go to the beach, they think about where sea level rise is going to be in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. That's how we will get the state ready. That's how we will adapt. That's how we will get people to understand why we're making policy changes and why local planning is so important. So with that, Alyssa, I thank you, and I thank everybody for being here today and participating. This is how we started.
You are muted, Alyssa. It says connecting.
Oh, can you hear me this way?
We can, thank you.
Okay, I'm not unable to unmute from my phone. I'm not sure what changed. What changed before? So if somebody can change.
Yep,
that
I'll
would
look
be
at that.
great.
I'll look at that,
Thank
Alyssa.
you. Okay, thank you so much, Dave, for that. Really appreciate the remarks and giving us, kind of setting us the tone for what we're doing here with the Resilient NJ project. Next slide, please. So as Dave mentioned, DEP and the Resilient NJ framework is helping with the science and tools to combine with this local expertise to formulate local plans on what can and should be done to adapt to the changing climate. So there's kind of 5 main outputs that or objectives that we're looking at here for Resilient NJ. The first is to assess current and future flood risks from rainfall, storm surge, sea level rise, and tidal flooding. The second is to develop innovative, implementable solutions that increase resilience in the short and long term to reach the underserved populations and ensure that there's representation and participation from socially vulnerable populations, and have this co-development of equitable solutions, to identify projects that enhance the value and integrity of ecological, recreational, and economic resources, and to start putting these plans into action with set aside funds through the course of the project in the next couple of months. So we're really looking to launch the implementation of actions at the beginning of next year. All right, next slide, please. So now we're interested in hearing from all of you on what you believe resilience means. What does resilience mean to you? So we'll launch that Pull Everywhere activity next. Thank you. So we're seeing being able to afford to live here in the future, bouncing back, being adaptable, having reliable access. We have a safe community, recover rather than quickly following a significant situation rather quickly. Thank you. We have managing disruption, ability to overcome difficulties, including the physical and mental. Planning and building in a way that anticipates and accommodates current and future risks. Preparing and planning for climate change impacts. Great. Thank you so much. Let's move on, just in the interest of time, and please keep the ideas flowing. And if you'd like to continue to answer either in the Pull Everywhere or in the chat, I'd love to hear more opinions. So we have a couple of definitions here on the screen. It's a working definition from DEP on what we mean by resilience. Understanding that some words like absorb and adapt to shocks and stressors may not be in normal vocabulary or resonate with anyone, but the intent is to describe both the ongoing and chronic impacts that affect a community's well-being. So those are long-term trends or pressures that undermine the stability of a community, increase vulnerability. So that could include things like discrimination and racism, poverty, and climate change. And shocks refer to sudden or surprising events that generally have a high impact and are of limited duration. So those are things like hurricanes or grid failure. So again, the goal of the planning process is to really focus on becoming more resilient to the physical impacts by also recognizing that we need to confront multiple issues at the same time. Next slide, please. So the climate impacts that we're looking at for the Resilient NJ project planning process are precipitation, stormwater, coastal storms, and sea level rise. And we're combining this with those compounding factors, including social vulnerability. All right, let's move into the project timeline, and I'll turn it over to Jonathan. And Kristen, if you could also make sure that Jonathan's able to unmute, you might have been having the same problem as I did where I was not unable to mute myself.
Yep, he
Hi,
should be able to.
everyone.
Sorry about that. Hi, Jonathan. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Carey. I work with Alyssa at WSP. I'm part of the team that's supporting the region as the region develops this plan. So on the screen right now is an overall timeline of the project, and we'll focus on 2 key points here. We are here right between spring and summer 2021. And then down on the lower right is the Regional Resilience and Adaptation Action Plan. So this process is really a problem-solving process where you identify the issues, you look at all the research that's been done, and we are also doing an asset collection and risk assessment. So what that means is that we're working with the local officials, the local leaders, as well as all of you to identify what physical services as well as physical locations are important to you. What do you feel are the important assets in the region that should be protected as we progress into the future? Dave mentioned all the way out to 2100. And then we'll be developing planning scenarios. That's in the middle of the screen, and I'll get into what that means in a minute. And then finally, the region will select a specific scenario that will become the Regional Resilience and Adaptation Action Plan. What's great about this project and what's great about New Jersey DEP is that they reserve the portion of the funding for implementation. So unlike many plans out there, this plan doesn't just sit on a shelf. This plan has money allocated so that the first step towards implementing individual projects can actually be put forward. So for example, say out of this plan, it's identified that there should be a raised bulkhead in a specific location. This project has funding to maybe get into some conceptual design of what that bulkhead could look like, what the public space around it could look like. So it's pretty exciting, and it's part of the process that we're going to go through over the next year here. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the scenarios and the action planning, and the idea is that this is a collaborative and comprehensive effort. It includes public outreach, it includes development of strategies, and it includes implementation. There's no single action that can address climate risk. Those of you who live in the region know there's different things being built. There's new bulkheads, there's new wetlands, there's raising homes, there's improving the infrastructure in the street. So the idea here is to look at all the potential improvements that could be made, what's important to the region, and come up with a way to prioritize what's more important through public involvement. And then once those items are prioritized, pair that with funding. We can identify funding streams from the federal government and possibly even the state government that can help assist in building these projects. And the last bullet just emphasizes this is a local plan. As Dave mentioned, the point here is that this is the region's plan. DEP and the consultant team are supporting the region, but it's the region's plan, and the plan will be consistent with local priorities and goals. Next slide, please. So we're going to get there with short-term and long-term resilience and urban design. Alyssa briefly touched on these 3. So short-term resilience is really the immediate bouncing back. It's right after a storm, what happens? Can people get back to their homes? Is power restored? Are utilities restored? When do the schools reopen? When can the debris be removed? How did the shelters function? What could be done better? But this plan is long-term. We're planning out to the end of this century. So it's also looking at sea level rise and climate change, and how can the region be resilient as these storms increase in frequency, as sea levels rise and storms increase in intensity. So pairing both short-term and long-term actions, we also want to look at urban design. All of this has to be implemented in a place where people live and people work and people want to live and work well into the future. This is everybody's home and everybody's businesses. So we want to be sure that it's a place that people want to come to and enjoy and are proud of. Next slide, please. So now I'll turn it over to Jacqueline Floor to go through the vision and goals.
Thank you, Jonathan. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So when we think about resilience, I mean, really, and we've talked about this before, we're trying to balance both the environmental, the community, and the economic opportunity. When we're looking at future actions, when we're thinking about those projects, if we can find projects that really benefit social aspects, thinking about social, meaning community cohesion, you know, we're thinking about both year-round residents, second homeowners, visitors to this region, and socially vulnerable populations. We also want to think about economic benefits. Are there projects we can move forward that would also have a dual benefit where it benefits the economy? Thinking about small businesses, the local economy, a diverse economy, as well as the environmental solutions. Think about this area, it's surrounded by water, there's plenty of marshlands. Are there ways to put forth projects that would help to ward against flooding or to live better with water and the ecological habitat, and thinking about clean energy? If you go on to the next slide. As we think through these things, we're going to ask you some questions. And what we're trying to do is develop a vision. What do you aspire for this region to be? Perhaps you think that the region's great the way it is and it's nostalgic, and that you aspire to try to keep things to maintain what makes this area so great. Or maybe there's things that you aspire in order to benefit the region and guide the development of actions and resilience in the future. So we should be considering all aspects of the community's character and identity. And we should use that to evaluate the success of the proposed scenarios. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to ask you questions in order to form a vision statement. Vision statements are future looking. We talked about that horizon of 2100, and they're intended to both inspire and give direction to the stewards of this action plan, not just to create it, but to sustain it over time. So we're going to ask you a series of questions, and then you'll see how we're going to use those questions to try to rank a vision statement. And you know, this is the first step. This visioning is going to go on. So today we're going to try to get some information for you to try to formulate that vision statement. You go to the next slide. So the first question, and we want you to go in and respond, is what kind of place, oh, hold on one second. What kind of place do you think the Atlantic County coastal region should be? And we'll wait and see some of your answers. You see visually appealing and safe. A mix of a destination resort with beaches, technical education, residential neighborhoods, FAA Tech Center in Stockton. One that attracts and allows a diverse population to have a wide range of talents. The coastal region needs opportunities of all levels of income to live, work, and play. Livable, community postured to support climate change while addressing challenges that impact residents and long-range planning initiatives. Year-round communities and amenities. Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Vibrant and diverse. Visually appealing and safe. Equitable and empowering. These are great answers. And if you see, you can also, if you like one, you can click on it and it will, you can thumbs up or thumbs down. If there's ever an answer you like or don't like, you can vote it up or vote it down as well. Excellent. Safe for all socioeconomic levels to live and play. And I see that so far ranking highest is a mix of destination resort, Atlantic City and beaches, technical education, FAA Center, and Stockton. Oh, a lot more being voted up. The community posture to support climate change. Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to take all of these answers and you're going to see as we move on how we're going to try to formulate these into a vision statement. Great. All right. So we'll move on to the next question. So if lost, what characteristics would change the identity of the region? Give everybody a few seconds to put some answers in. Are there any characteristics that you feel that if they were lost in this region, the region wouldn't be the same? Beaches and boardwalk we have so far. The ability for generational retention of property. Excellent answer. People and community that they have formed, casinos, beach sand, the loss of wetlands. The shore appeal, Back Bay communities and floods, and those that need protection. And those homes that need protection. FAA Tech Center relocated to another part of the country, that would affect the region. Boating, fishing, and small dives. The people and the community that they have formed, that cohesion. Excellent. Give it a few more seconds. Some people are voting up and voting down. All right. Let's go to the next question. Everybody hear me? Okay. Why do people choose to live and work in the region? And I apologize, I accidentally muted myself a second ago and couldn't unmute. All right, we have ocean, the sound and smell of the ocean and salt air. Feeling the healthy and slower pace. Love for coastal community, living activities, convenience. People said that they love the ocean, that we're forced inland when it came time to afford a home, so affordability. to great long-term communities. We love our communities and living at the shore. The ocean getting voted up, as well as the love for coastal community living and activities. A pleasant place for family to gather, with family-oriented aspects. Close to major cities. All right, excellent. Let's go on to the next question. Why do tourists choose to visit the region? Ocean, the beach, and the casinos. Great beaches, casinos, and family in the area. To spend time near the ocean. The beach and the boardwalk. To get away from urban life and enjoy the seashore life for a brief moment. Best located entertainment district in the country. Convenient to their homes. All right, conferences. A lot of people come here for conferences, casinos, great beaches. All right. A lot of getting voted up. You can use that thumbs up or thumbs down if you want to upvote or downvote things. Historic charm of Cape May, best located entertainment, conferences. Excellent. All right. All right, so we'll move on to the next question. What aspects of the region are you the most proud of? Beach and boardwalk. Stockton University and its growth. Great communities to raise kids, clean beaches. The ability to provide services to visitors, like the homeowners and primary homeowners each and every year. And you can also vote up and vote down things Do you agree? Maybe it's the same answer you would have given. Communities and beaches. Beaches and boardwalk. Excellent. Again, that family-oriented location. All right, perfect. All right, as we move on to the next question. What services, improvements, and technologies do you see your community benefiting from in the future? Is there any future technologies or services that you think that this area would benefit? Bicycle infrastructure, that transportation piece, and community cohesion piece. Broadband. People are able to work here remotely, so broadband's become extremely important. Multi-jurisdictional coordination. Improved airport services is in the chat. More airlines. Emerging technologies based on clean energy initiatives. One-way valves on the storm source so water can't flow into the streets. People with vision to see what can be finding ways to make it happen. Breweries in the Orange Loop comes to mind, needing innovative jobs that bring in people. You can also, if you see answers that you agree with or disagree with, you can always vote up, vote down. So we see some people voting up clean energy and bike infrastructure and broadband, more resilient businesses and homes. Shared services. Give you some more seconds. And then we'll move on. All right, so we've got a lot of votes for clean energy and bike infrastructure, but a lot of great answers here. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to take this vision statement, this is just a draft, and we're going to try to take in some of the information we're hearing and then allow you to vote up and vote down. So the Atlantic County Coastal Region is an inclusive, clean, and safe place with a diverse economy that supports local businesses, research opportunities, and new industries centered on renewable energy and the beach economy. The region is able to withstand climate impacts now and into the future through improved shoreline protection, critical infrastructure, and community resources. If you go on to the next slide. So with that draft, does that draft resonate with you? Do you strongly agree? You either agree or disagree, you agree. Give you some time. So some agreed, some strongly agreed, others neither disagreed or agreed. We're going to take some of the feedback we got and we'll come back to you in a little bit. In the chat, we also CC, some people lukewarm on that. They feel we could incorporate more. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Jenna Scott and Bill to talk a little bit about goal setting.
All right, thanks, Jackie. Can everyone hear me? All
Yes,
right,
we
I'm going to
can,
talk.
Jenna.
Great, thank you. The next step in the planning process is going to be goal setting. And the planning goals are statements that will describe the desired results of the planning process by solving the problems and taking advantages of the opportunities that we identify while planning. As we develop the scenarios and the recommended actions, they will link back to these goals. So it's a way to check back in and make sure we're staying on course. And it will also be used to frame a clear vision and the path forward for future projects and policies. Next slide, please. So these are some of the goals and ideas and topics that have come up through our discussions with the steering committee and the technical advisory committees. As a next step, we're going to ask you to provide your input on the goals that are important to you using the poll everywhere. All right. So in this poll everywhere, which is launching now, we're going to ask you to place a pin on your top goal across the top, and then pick 2 or 3 more, or one for each column, sorry, one in each column that is your priority goal. Kristen, do you want to launch the poll?
Sorry about that. There you guys go.
So our top goals are diversify economy, protect critical infrastructure, protect critical ecology, and then protects residents' ability to stay in the region. And that seems to be getting quite a bit of the pins. We're also getting strengthen the research industry, and preserve and promote the diversity and inclusion, promoting the tourism and hospitality industry, great answers coming in. All right. And then you can select one of each column as well, even if it wasn't your top one across the top row. And then if there's something that you don't see and you'd like it included, please add it in the comments in the chat box. So definitely a lot for staying in the region, maintaining the ability to stay here, and also protecting critical infrastructure. All right. Is there any that anybody wanted to discuss or talk about? We could open up the mics for that. Virginia, I see you put it in the chat. Did you want to add anything to that, or?
If anybody would like to ask a question, on air, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you so you can ask your question, or you can provide a comment also.
Thank you, Heather. Heather added environmental justice and making sure that our most vulnerable residents are protected. All right, excellent goals. All right, is that any more responses coming in, Kristen? So we'll promote walkability, expanding education and awareness about emergency preparedness. And that goes back to what Dave was saying about getting the message out to all residents, as well as community leaders and planners. Identifying opportunities for the beneficial reuse of resources. For example, dredging materials. We also have another comment about redistrict development on the Bay Islands along the causeways. Oh, restrict development, sorry. Richard, is that meant around Route 40 and Route 30? About the land that's being flooded now? All right, I think we have a great list of goals that we can compile and work off of. And we've got some more to add. Yes, can we unmute Richard? Alyssa?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Hi, my name's Richard Levitt. I'm chairman of Northfield's planning board. I'd like to express a concern about the development on the Bay Islands and causeways. In 2018, Egg Harbor Township approved a redevelopment plan for blocks 9701 and 9801, which is the Sea Village and Gifford Marina. These were substantially destroyed during Sandy. The redevelopment plan is shown by the developer included 9 4-story tall buildings, residential buildings. I am wondering how the DEP feels about this in light of the Bay Island restrictions, sea level rise, problems with flooding on the Margate Causeway, the visual impact, the quality of life, the views of the meadows, and the loss of recreational space for boating to residential development, and how any decisions could affect further development along the other Bay Islands in the causeways, including the Longport Causeway. So perhaps if some of your people could address these concerns, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Richard. I don't want to put Dave on the spot, but those are concerns that we want to include in the report, and looking at what residents and the policies that are being made. Does anyone want to add to that?
Do we know if there have been development applications yet in light of the redevelopment plan? Can anyone from DEP respond to that?
Matt, is that something that you're aware of?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I was just trying to unmute myself. I'm personally not aware of the issue, so I cannot speak to it, unfortunately. But it's certainly something that we can bring back and get an answer on. And then, you know, we're in constant contact with Alyssa and her team, so we can coordinate through that channel as well. But yeah, we'll definitely take note of it. It's a concern. Obviously, we want to encourage safe and smart development in these areas. That's why we're doing this planning process. But unfortunately, I can't speak to it right now, but if it's a concern, we'll certainly make note of it.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, Richard, for your comment. Is there any other comments or goals that we would like to see? All right, I think next slide, please.
And just 1 second, I'm getting the visions pulled up.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. Thanks, Jenna, for going through our goals and for all the comments and feedback. Really appreciate it. And as Jenna said, this is, our way of trying to develop this unified set of goals, recognizing that there's a lot of unique elements and unique interests and objectives in the region, but that working together on a shared vision and goal set will help us get to success and some unified outputs as well throughout this process. And I think another thing to point out too is that, as we've mentioned previously, there's, certain funding sources that are out there, the federal level specifically, that different communities across the country are going to be vying for. And so, having this unified set of goals as well allows us to move in the same direction altogether, so that the region is well positioned for competing for those other resources available at different state and federal levels. Okay, let's see. So as we're developing in the background these, oh, and here it is. I was just going to mention that we have 3 different vision statements that we've pulled together from those answers that everybody started providing when Jackie was going through our visioning section. So we've developed these 3 different visions from what we've heard just from this morning. And we're really interested to hear your perspective on if any of these resonate. So we're hoping that you could rank, these are ranked, Kristen?
They actually were too long, so these are clicked. If you want to go ahead and if anybody has strong feelings about one over the other, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll make sure that we can include it as a rank.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so as you look on the Poll Everywhere slide, if you could click on the one that you prefer the most, and if there are certain elements of each of them that you like, you can also put that in the chat box and we'll make sure that we incorporate that feedback as we continue to revise and iterate on this vision statement. We'll also incorporate this feedback into the responses on the draft vision statement, which was created through the listening sessions that we have been doing over the past couple of months through our community advisory committee meetings and steering committee meetings and community conversations that we've been having. Want to make sure that, as we've talked about since the beginning, that the local expertise really comes through, and that we have developed a statement and goal set that really resonates with community members, and making sure that the voices of people that aren't typically heard in planning processes are coming through this process through Resilient NJ. It looks like the center one is getting a few hits so far. We have a comment about beginning of the first and ending of the third. Great. Bruce, and stating that place with community. Are there words that are missing from this? Any of these 3 statements that you think really need to be a part of the vision statement, or other words that you would change? we have, Jim, thank you for your comment. The community is involved in the hazard mitigation plan that piggybacks on what's here. Yeah, so we definitely referring to that hazard mitigation plan and have reviewed the objectives in that as well, and working with the county on the actions that have been identified through that process as well, so we can figure out how this all fits together. We have a revised vision statement from Kristen, also working through combining kind of the first and the third together.
It is kind of hard to see just because it's green on green, but there is some activity on the green one. So we have, I think, 3 or 4 that prefer that one.
Wonderful. Great, thank you. Well, I know that we just have about 3 minutes left, so let's move on to the last slide, which is our stay engaged slide, just to provide a few opportunities. We're really encouraging all of you to stay engaged with us, stay involved, and to share our project and this planning process with your networks. So I'll put it in the chat box as well, but we have a project email that everyone can reach us directly. So I just put that in the chat box. We also have a survey that's available for anyone that might want to participate in upcoming community conversations that we're having. So that's what that next survey form is. And I'll again put our website into the chat box as well, where you can stay up to date. We have an events and announcements section on there, and we'll also be launching a crowdsourced mapping tool in the coming months so that you can pinpoint on a map different problem areas or opportunities for resilience solutions and other types of projects that we would like to bring into the action plan. And then finally, we'll have this Survey Monkey available to provide additional responses. It's going to be a little bit different from the real-time polling that we have, because we're not able to kind of behind the scenes craft the vision statement based on everybody's responses, but still be able to provide that opportunity for people to provide input on what the vision statement should be and what the priority goals should be as well, so that we can bring this all together and confirm a vision statement with our steering committee, and to really set the trajectory for the rest of the project throughout the next coming months. So we just have a minute left, but before we close, thanks so much again for joining us this morning. Really appreciate everybody's interest and energy that you brought to the table today. Really grateful to hear all of your feedback and comments and questions. So if anybody has any last statements or final thoughts that you'd like to share, we can unmute you, or from anybody on the project team as well. Any final comments before we close out for the morning, or DEP for that matter? Okay, well, hearing none, then we will close out for today. You will on Poll Everywhere see an exit survey pop up. So that's where we're asking for your feedback on how today's session went, how we can improve, and also to provide this opportunity, if you're interested in this free adult first aid CPR AED course, to provide your contact information there, and we'll randomly draw a few selected winners. We have 6 free courses available to share with the community members here and everybody that's been participating today. So thank you again for all of your input and your questions today. Really appreciate you joining, and we hope that this is just the beginning of a conversation working with all of you together on this action plan. All right, well, thank you again, and I think we will close for the day. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.